Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Ask the Expert. Hesinki, what's new for developers? Thank you so much for joining today. Today's expert is Dave Slusher, Platform and Developer Evangelist at ServiceNow. And he's going to walk you through some live hands-on demos of all the cool new stuff in Hesinki for developers. Before I pass it over to Dave, I just wanted to talk about the highlights in Hesinki for developers. There are two themes in this release. The first one is consumerizing the service experience, and it's really all about the Service Portal Designer, which provides a web standards-based framework for developers and designers to create delightful user experiences. And I think Dave's going to show you from start to finish how to build a very cool app and UI with Service Portal Designer and custom widgets. The second theme is accelerating time to value. And that's really showcased by delegated development, which enables IT to empower non-admin developers company-wide while retaining governance and control of the platform. So Dave will show you those in his demos, plus other new features, including the new ECMA 5 JavaScript engine, Studio Git integration, and Record Watcher. So without further ado, actually, one more thing, sorry. Please post all your questions to the discussion thread on the developer community, and we will be sure to have Dave and other experts answer those for you. And that's it. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Dave to get down to business. Dave, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you, Martin. That is what I'm here for, is to get down to business. All right. So let me go straight to it. Again, as Martin said, I'm Dave Slusher, developer evangelist with platform development. And you can see on my screen here, I'm going to share in a second. It will have my Twitter handle and my email address, and so these will be in the recording. If you need those, feel free to reach out to me by whatever means is most convenient to you. So let me. Am I sharing? Still sharing? Okay. Whoa, my share went. 1 second. All right. So let us quickly run over the agenda. So I'm going to talk about the changes that we have in the studio environment, and I'm going to talk about source control, and I'm basically going to demo those at the same time because they're intricately intertwined. So the studio changes basically are the source control changes, and so this is big stuff that you can now integrate with Git, and we'll talk about that. We are going to talk about delegated development, the way that you can basically now you can selectively give permissions. You don't have every single developer admin on every single instance they touch, and that's big stuff. Martin mentioned the JavaScript engine has been updated to ECMA 5, so we took about an 18-year step forward at that time. But where we're going to spend the bulk of this time really is on Service Portal, and I'm going to walk you through kind of creating a widget. And I'm putting that at the end because it's kind of the big guns, and you don't start with your encore. You put your encore at the end. So I'm going to put Service Portal there. So just a little tiny bit of housekeeping. Kind of the place where I mostly ply my trade doing what I do is at developer.servicenow.com. So this is a completely shameless plug for that program. We've got training up there, documentation, API references, and you can get a developer instance up there. And as of yesterday, you can actually pick specific versions of developer instances for those people who have a business reason to want to have a Fuji instance. So you can go have a free instance to do with whatever you please. All right. So let us now start talking about this. And so the studio changes, really, I'm just going to go straight to demo on those because there's really not much to talk about. I'm going to show you, how I can create an application from a Git repository. So these are like the source control changes, and I mentioned that they were entwined with the studio changes. You notice that now we've got, when I went to Open Studio, I got this interceptor dialog. So it's basically asking, there are no applications on this stock developer instance that I have here. And my choices now are to create a new application, or I can import one from source control. So what I'm going to do is import from source control. Now I'll show you in a second what this looks like from the repository end. So I have a repository configured. I have my credentials are already kind of in my browser history. So I'm going out to Git. Now while that's going, I'll actually show you this guy. This is what I just pulled down. So I have this GitHub repository, and in fact, I'm going to publicize this. If you go to the community thread that we've talked about, I can't remember if I already put the link in, but I will put a link in. Anybody who wants to is free to go to this GitHub repository to fork it, and then you will actually get the example that I have is part of this. So if you look at this now, you'll see that I have this GitHub repository, Hesinki webinar. It's got 3 branches on there: master, webinar initial, final product. Okay. So if we look over here in our studio, we now select application, and it went out to GitHub, and it pulled in the version of that Hesinki webinar that exists out there. So I'm going to open Hesinki webinar. Now you're not going to see a lot of stuff in here because it's all mostly Service Portal that I've got. So there's not a lot of application files in here. So if you look in here, now you've got this tab that gives you source control options. So you can edit repository config, which is the credentials that I just used. You've got apply remote changes, which is essentially pull down any change that is on the repository that's not here. It's basically, it's a git pull. But down here you'll see some interesting stuff. So switch branch, and we are in fact going to switch branch right here. We're on master. Where I want this to actually be is on webinar initial, and this is going to set up my service portal that I'm going to show you later. This is going to set it to where I want to start. So I'm going to now switch this branch from master, which is kind of where it defaulted to. I'm going to switch it to webinar initial. It's checking we have local changes. We haven't done anything here. So notice what you see down here is that it was uninstalling the application. It's importing the application. So essentially, this is a thing to be aware of, that anytime you are upgrading, anytime you're pulling down remote changes, anytime that you're switching branches, or anything that you're doing on your dev instance, you're actually uninstalling and reinstalling the application. This mostly doesn't affect you a lot, except if you've spent a lot of time creating demo data, and then say it's in a table that gets dropped and re-added. I know this because I've done exactly this. So at this point, you'll notice over here that Hesinki webinar is the repository I'm connected to. I'm on version 1.00, and I'm now on branch webinar initial. And so there's my repo URL where it comes from. There's the information about the latest commit that has happened there. The checksum of the latest commit. And you have a few other options. You can, for example, create a tag. I can create a tag now. That is, I can type it. I can Hesinki. Note that have spaces. I think I can create a tag, and that will actually go out to the repository, and it will create that tag, basically do a commit of that tag. So there's now a tag on this point, in the commit structure in that Git. So you have these options, and in fact, you can go, if you wanted to, you can create a branch from a tag. So this is actually not a bad idea to do that anytime you have kind of a commit. Think of it as like a save point in video games. I probably don't have to explain to you guys how source control works. But so this is, to me, this is extremely exciting stuff, because it now lets you have kind of some first-class developer hardware. You're used to this. If you're a full stack developer like I was before I came to ServiceNow, this is the kind of stuff that I sort of consider baseline. And so having it in, now lets me kind of work in the way that I'm accustomed to. Now let me tell you what you can and can't do, or let me tell you what you can't do. And you'll notice this in the generated files down here. You'll notice that the README that ServiceNow will create and commit to your repository for you tells you, do not edit the files outside of ServiceNow. So this lets you save the state. It lets you collaborate with other people. It lets you do all your handling. You can create multiple branches and maintain them, and handle your releases that way. What it does not do is let you, say, connect an external IDE or something like that, because you'll notice that there is a checksum down here, and this checksum has to match the checksum of the contents of this. If it mismatches, you can no longer install this to your ServiceNow instance. And we actually had somebody who very innocently came through and they edited the README file with some information, which would be typical practice in something like this, which invalidated the checksum, and then they had to revert because they could no longer install from their no longer install from their repository. So that's the kind of thing that you need to be aware of. So that's kind of I'm going to kind of go through this stuff fast. I could probably talk about each one of these things for an hour, but I've got multiple things to get to. So so at this point, that's kind of how you can use Git. There's a lot of power and a lot you can do with that, but we've got other stuff to show. We have many more fish to fry in here. So what I'm going to show now, I don't think I have a lot to. So I'll put it in here just so that this is in the video and you can refer to it. Again, this is the link. If you go back and look at this at YouTube, you can freeze it on here. A short link, bit.ly, Git Hesinki demo. That will get you to GitHub, and you are absolutely free to fork that and use anything that I have in this demo. So at this point, we're going to talk a little bit about delegated development. So the whole rationale behind delegated development is to get you out of the system, the situation where you have to grant admin rights, full admin rights to the instance for every single person who is doing any kind of development on the system. That's not a very granular, it's a very brute force way to give you access to your developers. So what delegated development does is lets you be more surgical. You can you're able to pick per user, per application, what permissions you want to allow them to have in a very granular fashion. And I will show this in just a minute. So let me go back to demo mode. And so I'm going to close the studio for a second and do my choreography of many windows here. So we've got our favorite person, Able Tutor. And notice over here, so at this point, we've installed this application. We've done nothing. Like at this point, Able Tutor doesn't actually even have the permission. He doesn't have Studio. Right? This is not. He doesn't even have the role that would let him open Studio. So I'm going to come back over here. I should have left that open. And we're going to open up our Hesinki webinar. And what we're going to do is we're going to administer some delegated development rights. And I'm going to manage developers over here. And Able Tutor, who has the power of alphabetical primacy, which just makes him such a compelling demo account. So you see now that I can choose what it is that I want to allow Able to do. So I could give Able all file type, so he can access and create every kind of file type. I could give him, say, just tables and forms, not let him write anything in the service catalog, not let him write reports. I can allow him to script, so he can have scripting object access, but he can't manage ACLs or roles, right? Or this could be exactly the opposite. It could be anything. So I'm going to go ahead and save this set. I'm just going to allow him to script. I'm going to allow him tables and forms. We're going to save that. So I've now granted that small granular set of permissions to Able. Now I'm going to log him out quickly and log him back in. And I would like to show this a couple more times, but the logging in and logging out is enough of a drag that I'm just going to show you the one thing, but you'll have to kind of trust me that it works like this for everything. So now Able has been granted these permissions via delegated development. And again, I have to stress that I granted him those permissions to create tables and forms and to do scripting for the Hesinki webinar application. Nothing else. Note that Able now has the ability to open Studio. And He can open Hesinki webinar. If I had multiple applications on here, then he would only have access to open this one because he has no rights in anything else. And you'll notice, if you're familiar with the studio, what you normally see, notice when I open this up, here's what Able Tutor sees. He has the ability to create a table column. He has the ability to create forms and list layouts, and he has the ability to create data policies, and rules. But he has this very select subset that we granted him, and so he can create these options and nothing else. So we're going to do at this point, we're going to take 1 second, and we are going to, I think at this point, that's really all I want to show about delegated development. I would like to go back and do this a couple more times, but again, I have to log in and log out each time. So we're gonna set Able free and let him go, and then talk a little bit more about ECMA 5. So ECMA 5, or the JavaScript 5 engine. So it has been version 3 up until now, and we kind of took a tiger leap forward and went to version 5. And so this allows for certain features that did not, that were not able to be used in previous versions. And so I'll show you a very simple example. There's not a lot to demo on this one because it's mostly a conceptual, the JavaScript engine itself behind the scenes is kind of where the stuff is happening. But you have the ability now to enter strict mode. And so by entering strict mode, that means, for example, if you're using an undeclared variable, which would be a warning before, that's now an error. That's a compilation error, and it will not allow you to save it, not allow you to execute it. It allows you to set up accessor methods where you can set up property and get the getter and setter methods on them, and use them as dot properties. It now, in the language itself, supports a lot of array methods that did not exist before. This is one of the things that bit me very early when I started using ServiceNow. Is I went to do some of these things expecting these array methods to be there, and they weren't there. And and it was a little bit of a head bump where I thought, why is this very simple thing not working? Well, it's just the age of the JavaScript engine and kind of the language features that were enabled in it. And so version 5 also includes some date methods that don't exist previous to that, and it allows for JSON support. So the JSON parsing, the JSON, basically marshalling and unmarshalling to and from JSON. This is now a first-class built-in feature of the language, whereas before it was not. It was kind of implemented in the platform. The calls that you used to use via script includes now are actually implemented via the language itself. So it's a little better supported and a little more first-class operation. And let me give you just a very simple demonstration of this, which is, like I said, it's a little hard to demonstrate this under the hood stuff like this. But here's an array, and I'm just trying to find out what's the index of the word second in this array. This is running in Geneva, and you get undefined because that's not even that operation. The index of is not even defined on an array in the version of the JavaScript engine in Geneva. And you do the same thing in Hesinki, and you get index 1, which is what you expect to see. And so, these are, if you think about kind of the energy, if you've ever gone into having to polyfill something, just to get the capabilities of the JavaScript engine to exist, that a lot of that is now a thing of the past, right? So there are certain JavaScript libraries that you might have wanted to use and that were troublesome to use because of the version that we had. Moment.js is one that people have wanted to use, and it gives you some date manipulation abilities that don't exist in the core platform, and now you can use something like that. And modern libraries are much easier to use. So with all that, I am now going to go into Service Portal. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about kind of my Service Portal, like where I came to Service Portal. as part of showing you the demo, because I think the story of how I got there is not going to be that different from a lot of developers. Which is to say that I had never touched Angular in my life prior to it becoming part of the ServiceNow platform. So I have, at this point, zero bit of flight time with Service Portal, with Angular at all in any format. And so what I wanted to do, and so I'm in here and I'm kind of tasked with building a demo for this, and I had spent maybe 2 hours trying to just get something that does anything around the time of knowledge. And so it came time to build this demo, and I wanted to do something kind of cool looking. And so I found this set of libraries that I thought were kind of compelling. Angular Material. Whoop, where'd it go? Angular Material, which gives you kind of some of the material design stuff in an Angular framework. And it lets you do, it gives you basically some UI elements that don't exist in stock Angular. And I said, that sounds great. I would like to have that. So let's do that. So what I did is I created, and again, this is in the source repo. That's where this thing is coming from. I went and I created a dependency. And again, I was not 100% sure that this was going to work. This was just me. This was just me kind of experimenting. And I said, okay, I want to do that. And I see this thing called widget dependency. What do I do? And so if you go over to Angular Material and the getting started, you can do it bit by bit, or you can do kind of a big splat of the whole library. There's basically one CSS file and one JavaScript file that you can do. And I said, okay, let me set that up. So I came in here, and in the widget dependency, I created a dependency on ng material. I created basically one import of this JavaScript file. You can either define them, as a UI script, so you could paste the whole body of that in there, or you can define it as an external file. And I just set these up as external URLs. One for the CSS include, one for the JavaScript include. And then I started using it, and danged if it didn't work. And again, I said I wasn't 100% sure it was going to work when I first started that. And so, so I did that, and at that point, that gave me the ability to now use all of these things. There's anything that is part of Angular Material, I now have in this project. I can do these card things. I've got these checkboxes. I've got these are not, again, I must stress, these are not built into Angular. They're not built into ServiceNow. I have imported a third-party library, and that's what it took, is basically creating these two records. So at that point, I've got the widget, and I'm going to show you. I've got a little bit of a starting thing here because it's extremely boring to watch me type or paste the whole thing. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of show you my starting point here. Let me get rid of this for right now. And so this is, if you have never seen it, this is the real-time widget editor view for editing a widget in the Service Portal. And so I'm going to close this for a moment just to give me some more screen real estate. I enabled this particular widget to have a preview, so you can see a live preview, and then over here you can see the HTML template. And this is just the starting point of where I'm going to start with all this stuff. So you can see that what I've done is the material design thing. It's basically just saying here's a chunk of material design elements, and I'm defining a card. And note, so I'm just defining it in HTML with this MD card tag, and that comes straight from ng material, not from core anything. And you'll notice this ng repeat. It takes a little while to get the mindset right, because a lot of what you're doing here is you're defining what you want things to look like, and then you're basically putting an iterator on it. So, and I'll show where this comes from in a moment. But so I'm basically defining that one card basically looks like this. It's got card text that's got a short description, it's got a number, an open by. This is all stuff that comes straight out of Incident. And it's got a button that says close, and I'm defining that. So then what I want this to be applied to is this list called C data incidents. Now, there's a little bit of auto magic in here, and we'll show this, is that over here you've got this client script, which is kind of the C controller. And this is kind of just an Angular convention. And this is essentially, think about this as model view controller, where the HTML is the view, the server script is the model, and this client script is the controller. It breaks down very much like that. So what I'm going to do, and I'm going to cut and paste this because it's a little bit of a chunk of code, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to just do a standard ServiceNow query. So in this ServiceNow server script, I have the ability to do all the glide record stuff that you would expect. This is a full, close the preview for a minute. This is a full scripting environment. And I copied a little bit too much. So let's do this. You see now what I'm doing is very standard stuff. I'm creating this data object, which is kind of automatically there. It's very much like a Scratchpad. It's like a workflow Scratchpad, or it's something like that. So I'm creating a variable inside the data object that's an array. I'm doing a glide record query on incident. I'm just ordering by sys updated on, and then I'm doing the query, and I'm looping on it. And I'm creating this little JSON object, and all I'm doing in that JSON object is putting in short description, number, priority, open by state, etc. When I'm done with that, I push it in here. So now I've created a little JSON object, which is the same thing that's over here. Right? I'm just doing the query. I'm looping on it in here, creating a big array of JSON objects, with a little subset of incident information. Then over here, I'm basically doing a for each type loop on C data incidents, which is this array. That's how that's going to end up, is kind of the model passes it to the controller, and the controller passes it to the view. All right, so now I'm going to save this. And again, this is like a default kind of untouched instance. I'm going to come over here, and let us reload this. Okay, and notice too that it took a second because it actually created the cross-scope permission for my demo to read incident. So now what we see right here is my query is going out. It's getting kind of the demo data that's on incident on this, this out-of-the-box instance. And now you see these cards. This card thing over here, this is, again, let's stress one more time, I didn't build the card, and it's not there. It's in the dependency. And so I added the headline by making this span be of class MD headline and passing it the short description that came from the JSON. That fills this in. And I'm passing it the number, the open by, the priority, the state, and then I'm giving it a close button. And you'll notice, too, if I come over here, you see this little animation on that? Again, that's all from the library. I didn't do any of this stuff. This is just there. So we've got this widget, and now this widget does like this much stuff. We're going to add more to it, but the widget does exist. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to demonstrate like what you would do with this. You've got the thing. I'm going to go ahead and do this first while we just have this very simple kind of default boilerplate widget. And notice too, I didn't get a good clock on this, but we've been at this less than 10 minutes, right? I kind of cut and pasted, and when I first did it, there was a little bit of fumbling, but it's only been a couple of minutes. So let's just make this, we'll just call it Hesinki. We're just going to create this page. So now we've got the Hesinki page, and I'm going to open it in the page designer. And I think, yeah, okay, this is what I want. And so now we've got this page designer, and I'm going to just drop a container. And so if you are at all familiar with Bootstrap, notice that you're kind of, this is Bootstrap, right? If you've ever used Twitter Bootstrap with its kind of 12, its 12-column idea, this is that. You can pick one of these things, and you can get this layout. Now, I'm just going to drop everything in the same layout. You come down here and you've got all these widgets that are possible to add. Right here is the widget that I just created. So I'm going to drop incident card. Oh, I've got the container. I need this. I'm going to drop this 12 column wide thing. So now I've got the outer container. Now I need a thing. Now I need a layout. And now I'm going to drop the incident card in that. And when I do, you'll see that this is now the page, right? And so in the widget editor, you're not able to like scroll down and do a lot of stuff. But you see now, I'm able to scroll down, and this is what you would see. Like if you had this out in the service catalog, this is what you see. And so now you're looking at the incidents, at the state of them. You'll notice that a lot of them are closed, et cetera, et cetera. This is, again, this is the state of what, this is just sorted by the date of the default data. I'm going to hit preview over here. And you're now looking at the preview mode of what my widget and what my page will look like. And my page just has this one widget that I just kind of created and added it. And note that it's got the same, the same stuff that I saw before. And with this button over here, I'm looking at the computer layout of this, right? This is what it's like in the desktop layout. Click this button here, I'm looking at the tablet layout of it. And click this button, and I'm looking at the form layout. And so you can, like, from in here, from this designer, you can look at all of these things, right? You can see what it's going to look like in any of these form factors. And it's that simple to create the widget, and it's that simple to create the page. Now, I'm going to come back over here and go back to my widget. And I'm going to open my card again. And again, this might be my experience. I don't know if there's a better way to navigate. This is kind of, I'm doing what I know to do here. So I'm going to start adding features to this. So this is, like I said, this is fairly boilerplate. So let's start adding some cool stuff to it and make it do more different stuff. So what I'm going to do now, here's a chunk again, just so to not have to type all this stuff and possibly mistype it. I'm going to add a little chunk here, and again, let me close this for more real estate. Close that one right now. I'm adding 3 checkboxes to this thing. And with these checkboxes, I'm giving each a label: open by, priority, and state. And so each one of these guys, what I'm going to do is just a checkbox, and there's a model associated with it. So what this model does is this means that this show open by is connected to the state of this variable. Think about it this way. The state of this variable is connected to the state of this checkbox. And it's real time and kind of live. So let me go ahead and just save that. And what we'll see over here in the preview is when that refreshes, we'll see, okay, now we've got that, right? So we've got the show values. Now this isn't hooked to anything at this point, but we've got this, and this is kind of what it looks like just default. This is what the out-of-the-box MD checkbox element does for you. Now what I'm going to start doing is adding a little bit of logic in here, and you do the logic in this way. So I want open by. I'm going to set this to ng if equals and show opened by. So I'm now making this particular span, whether this shows, I'm making this contingent on the state of this model. So we do the same thing. Show, which one am I on? Priority. And show state. So now, by adding these 3 statements, I'm now hooking that to this. So I'm going to click save. And it's going to load, and it's going to. Now you notice that all those 3 elements, although they're defined here on the card, you'll notice that they're not showing. I'm not showing open by or priority or state. Now, if I do click it, if I click open by, it's showing it, right? It's not that value on that first one, but system administrator. If I click priority, if I click state, it's kind of showing and hiding dynamically based on the value of this model. And again, look how little code that was. That was defining the checkbox. It was setting a model on it. it was acting on the model. And so this is responsive real time. If I go over to my preview, I would see exactly the same thing. And so so that little code like begins to start giving you functionality. So my UI is already doing stuff that responds to that. Now I'm going to show you a little piece of code that, and again, this is how you bring that back. After I'm going to add something to my controller, and this is a little tiny bit of magic code. There's a few things, and I'm going to be honest, I'm still kind of learning my way around Angular to the point where Angular has this way where you, in these various controllers and servers, you can pass in scopes and things like that. I honestly am not 100% sure where the scope and this sputil comes from, but I'm going to define them here, and they're available to the environment. And now at this point, all this stuff is available in here. So sputil is this built-in I guess library convenience class of objects available to service portal widgets. And what I'm doing is I'm defining a record watch, and I'm saying for incident when this changes, I want to do an update inside of the scope. And again, I found a reference to this code on a doc site, and I put it in there just to see what it would do. Now we're going to save this. Now, so we'll save that. We'll get that in here. After that refreshes, what I'm going to do here is separate my tab here out, and we're going to leave that view for a second, and we're just going to go to incidents. And let's just go to all. We would just want to go to all incidents. Let's get this like this, and I'm going to go and take this incident and edit it. I'm going to save this record back. And note over here in the widget, it just changed, right? I didn't do anything more to make this respond to the data changes than add this line of code. I added a record watch with scope, and I'm saying watch the incident records, and here's the callback. When it happens, just update the scope. So it basically goes out and recalls the server script, and then gets this list again. And that is all it took to do that. And again, this is kind of the theme of this particular demo is I ain't doing a lot of work here, right? I'm adding a couple lines, and then this thing's happening, and then you add a couple more lines, and this thing's happening. So at this point, you now have, look how little code is up here. You've got, we're able to change the way the UI looks. We're able to do this stuff. We're able to have it respond to changes on the system, and it took nothing more than that. So now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to hook up this close button. And actually, before I even do that, I'm kind of actually skip ahead a little bit because I like this particular feature, and it's gonna involve some cutting and pasting. So what I'm gonna do is kind of jump ahead a little bit in this, as I said, and I'm going to show how you can filter on values. So one of the things that Angular is really good at, and again, let's do this. Angular is really good about at dealing with the real-time stuff. So you've got this array defined, right? You've got this array defined in memory, and Angular is really good about responding in place to that. So what I'm doing now is I'm just changing my one column into two columns, and I'm dividing them this way. I'm basically saying here's a column and here's a column. Each of them 6, which means they're kind of half of the bootstrap business. And here's one that's active, and here's one that's closed. And the way that I define which record goes into which one is based on if active is true, it's going to go in this list. And if active is not true, it's going to go in this list. Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you may notice something, which is I don't have active in my JSON object. So what we're going to do is just add that in here. And now I'm going to save all this. So now we've got the two lists, and we've added the active field to that. We're going to save it back. And hopefully I did not cut and paste error anything. And we'll see what we expect to see, which is active column. And these are the active records, and these are the closed records. And what I also did down here, and this was kind of left over, I had done this earlier, is I had also set on the MD card, oh, no, never mind. When I did this, I only have the close button in the active card. So this is kind of defined at the card level. So I've got this button down here, the close button, and that's only exists in that one. So that's how I did that. Now I'm going to go back over to the incident. So please remove that latest hotfix from my PC. And let's do this. Let's just filter that out so we can show that. Now we're going to take this one, and we're just going to close it. Let's resolve it. Let's resolve it. Let's do the close code. Boop. Now let's go ahead and make it closed. And again, note that real time, there's a change in the incident table. Note that that moved from the active to closed. And again, it did that just because this value changed on that record. And now the filter over here put it in this one. So it's sorting by updated date, new to old, and then it's in your record. Like this list over here is both active and closed. This is all records, but this filter over here is deciding which list to put it in real time. And again, this is Angular is doing this, as part of its horsepower. And again, the whole thing kind of is doing that, the open by and the priorities and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, but wait, there's more. I'm a Ginsu nice salesman at this point. So now we got this close button. This close button doesn't actually do anything. So what we've got over here is ng-click. It's got close incident, and it passes the event. And what I'm going to do also is, before all this stuff works, I'm going to have to bring in a little bit more from my data element. So I need to be able to carry in the sysid, and I'm going to also bring in the assign to. Me being anal about my alignment of my code. And so I'm going to create all this stuff, and then I'm going to also add a thing. So again, close incident, and it's passing the event. I'm going to add in a little bit of client script. And the client script is over here. Let me get this. So let me paste this in here. So here is, I'm basically defining this close incident function, which I want to be available over here. This is what I want the close button over here to be doing. And it passes in an event, okay? And so this is where I'm defining it. And so I just logged to the console, buttons clicked, I just left my logging in there, which is, for when I was doing this. I'm taking the event current target ID, and you'll notice that I set the ID of that to the incident sysid. Okay, so that's why I had to add that in here. So this is so the button knows what sysid it's acting on. Gets that out of the event, and now I'm doing just a very simple put call. I'm actually calling the API, the table API for the instance this is on, and I'm saying for the current target, I'm just changing the state to 7. So I'm just literally just closing it, right, via the table API. So let's go ahead and do this. And again, hopefully I pasted everything that I needed in here. So now we've defined inside the client script, the controller, we've defined this little bit of code that responds to the button. So at this point now, when I do this, I should click this close button. This will come over here, close incident, respond to this, and then it will close that. Take a second, and we should see that closing. Beep, beep, beep. And it may not. Okay. Ah, the first. I made it this far. HTTP. Oh, and here's when I was saying before about the magic of where things come in. Here is what I did wrong. Okay, we actually got to see me correct this real time. Okay, I'm not passing the magic HTTP. For this guy right here, this guy was not in context. So let's save it. Hopefully I can recover from this. But even if I don't, it's better than the situation of the previous attempt at this demo. Okay, so now let's try this again. And in fact, you see now we see the button clicked, etc. And that now it did close it, right? And you can see in the console log, you can see that logging that I put in there. I saw it go by. Oh, there it is. Here's my record update, etc., etc., etc. So now by adding this in here, this little call to an out-of-the-box API, I'm just taking this incident with this sysid, and I'm just force changing its state to 7. And with that, I can come over here and I can close records and have this respond to this button. Okay. So now I'm going to do one more thing, and this my partner in the developer program, Josh Nereus. I'm going to call Josh out specifically because I was casting around I wanted to put like a final thing in here. And you'll note over here that if we look in the open by, I've got it defining this source. I've got it defining this incident avatar URL and calling that. What I wanted to do is I wanted to add like one more final thing, and I wanted to say, okay, given all of this information about this incident, I wanted to be able to do this, and Josh found the magic for me. Give him a call out. Given that the open by, so given that I have on this glide record an open by, I want to be able to find the photo, this photo, of the person who opened the record. Now, let me go ahead. So I'm doing that. Now I'm adding the avatar URL to incident avatar URL. So I'm adding that to this little JSON object before I push it. And so it's doing some magic. You know, this is kind of ugly and hacky, but it actually works. So we're going to do this. And I'm going to save that. Now, these couple guys that are up top here, not everyone on your default instance, not everybody, and you notice too, we've got this cross scope, this read operation was now recorded that we're doing this operation against sysattachment. And let's see if any of these guys up here, they don't have these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here. I'm going to open my page again. And let's open the page. And again, there's probably a more concise way to get to this. This try it URL. All right, so I'm going to do this. And oh, okay, I know why, because there's my active. Let me widen that out so that it did that. I confused myself. So do open by, and let's find somebody that has the avatar URL. Well, hello, sysadmin. Hello, old friend. Oh, hello, Fredletty. So, you know, if this is defined in there, now I can one of the things I could not figure out how to do, and this is again my inexperience with Angular, that this kind of responds to that. I can't figure out how to force it to a smaller one. So this guy kind of fits itself to it. I have no doubt that there's a way to do it but I haven't quite figured that out yet. But at this point, you see that I can I can add stuff like that to this, and again, this is responding to all the same information that I did before. Open by is over here, and I can now close these guys, and you'll see them moving from active to closed. And this is the live page. This is this page out in the service portal. And you can see Rain is linking on the main DNS server. All right, well, let's close that. So, at this point, and my voice keeps cracking like a teenager because I'm so excited. At this point, I've now basically created everything that I wanted to do in this. And let's look at like how much code is in here. Get rid of this preview for a minute, and you see that we've got 36 lines of server script, and almost half of that is me with this hack to get the avatar URL. We've got 20 some lines of client controller code, 3 lines for the watcher and a couple lines for the incident handler, and then we've got 39 lines of HTML that just defines that whole card layout. So there are, at this point, there are more things that you could do, right? You could take this, and like maybe the next logical thing would be to, instead of having the close button, would be to add drag and drop. I don't have that installed yet, but these are things you can add. You can add draggable as a dependency, and then you respond to those kinds of events. So at this point, in half an hour, with a little bit of copying and pasting, I created this. And in real time, it probably took me to get almost all this working, to get everything but the avatar working, probably took me less than 3 hours. And that was from complete ignorance of everything about this. Soup to nuts, had a thing that was doing all of this stuff. Even though in a few cases I wasn't 100% sure why it was. I was just Googling Angular and how it does things, and Googling for reference documents, but I was able to get all this stuff going. So again, both the initial version that I started with and the final version are branches in that repository that I was publicizing. So if you want to pull this down, fork it and pull it down, you can have exactly this. And if you want to play with it and kind of see what it does and just take this example and fiddle around with it, this is out there, free for anybody to work with that wants to work with it. So and actually I built this modularly because I was not sure if I was going to be able to get through all of this. I'm actually pleasantly surprised I was able to get through the entirety of the service portal widget portion of the demo. So again, this is now like what it would look like out in production. And you notice I confused myself first because I couldn't realize why there was only one column, because I had the window too narrow, and it automatically did its relayout. Like any kind of responsive web design. So with that, let me come back over to my slide. And I don't think there's much left to talk about. So at this point, if we have questions, then I will certainly answer them. If you have questions, you can put them in the community, and we will answer them kind of real time here. We've got a couple more minutes. Again, my plug for the developer site at developer.servicenow.com. You can follow me on Twitter, Dave Slusher Now, which is all business except when I went crazy for the College World Series a couple of weeks ago, since the university in my town won the whole thing. And these are the links to the GitHub that I was talking about. And so again, the short link, if it's easier to remember, bit.ly git Hesinki demo, but we're going to publicize these links. These will be up on that same thread in the community. I will have this link up there. And ideally, I would like to see a lot of forks, because I'd like to see people taking this and using it. And so you kill multiple birds with one stone there. You get to play with source control, you get to play with service portal, and you get to take the new tools out for a test drive. So do we have any questions for me to answer? I will. Oh, go ahead.
Community, and I haven't seen any fresh questions yet.
Okay.
You've given a lot to think about.
I know. I'm going to take one sip of water because my mouth is extremely dry. Now, I will talk about a couple gotchas that I have found while I was doing this. I was, when we did this a couple of weeks ago in the version where with the WebEx woes, I was sweating it extremely right beforehand because I was finding a problem that I had my source repo, and when I would pull it to an instance, I would open the editor, and it wouldn't work. It just, I was like getting nothing. So when I would come over to that widget editor, it would just crap out and it would give me JavaScript errors, and I could not figure it out. It was driving me batty, and I thought it was a problem with the source control. Turns out it was a problem in how I defined the dependencies. And when I originally set this up, I was working on a local instance here on my own machine, which does not use SSL. And my JavaScript and my CSS includes were using the HTTP version of this, which is all well and good when you're not running HTTP, when you're not running SSL on the server. But then once I moved it to a live instance out in the cloud, everything died because it would get an error because of mixed content, right? SSL and non-SSL content. It wouldn't load this library, and then it would kind of poop out on trying to load the editor. So this is something that I have kind of figured out the hard way. If you're doing one of these things with an external library on a ServiceNow instance, use the SSL version of the link, or else you will have problems. If they don't have an SSL version of the link, then you want to, let me show you how you can do this. Then what you're going to want to do is come over here and you can define this JavaScript include, like I've got it defined as an URL, pointing externally. You can pick a UI script on your system. So you could copy and paste the whole, the whole of this thing onto your machine and then reference that UI script. You could absolutely do that. Or you can just do, I probably wiped out my URL when I did that. No, it's still there. Or you can just use the external URL like I did. If you don't want to be dependent on the external URL and have everything self-contained, you may choose to do it that way. So that is something that I found out the hard way, and so I didn't want to publicize publicizing the repository because I knew that if people pulled it down, it wouldn't work right. So now that's fixed. I've got the SSL version in there, and that's why I'm kind of free and easy, and trying very hard to publicize that URL. So that is definitely one thing that I ran across. And one question we had before that I want to reiterate. I think it came. It was a comment somebody left after our previous demo. They were asking about delegated development and whether you're able to use delegated development to specify somebody who would be does not have admin on the instance, but can now apply update sets. So delegated development by itself does not do that because, like before, when I was saying how you were you're creating granular permissions per application. So your delegated development permissions are for a scope for a user. They are all, which implies that they have to be inside a scope. So in order to administer an update set or do those kinds of things, you have to be admin on the box because you have to be able to administer the scope. So within the scope, delegated development works. Outside of the scope, it does not. Right. So like a lot of these things, it's contained inside the scope box. And with that, if we have any questions, I will answer them. Otherwise, we will call this a wrap. And I'm glad that the whole thing seemed to have worked. I was actually assuming I would make at least one copy and paste error, and I did do the one with the HTTP. So.
Nope. Currently, I think they're still waiting to wrap up, and then they'll probably have their questions a little bit later in the community. Okay.
Well, thank you everybody for your time, and again, and thank you for everybody watching this later. And I am extremely excited about all these tools. I personally have just been wanting to spend. One of the best thing about doing this demo is it gave me a business reason why I had to sit down and work with Service Portal and do some of this Angular, which was, frankly, since I left Knowledge, the only thing I wanted to do. So it made a reason where I had to do it, and so I was extremely happy to have that on my to-do list. So this is some of you may know Chris Malloy, a guy who kind of works with us. He told me that your first day with Angular will be the worst day of your development life. He says every day after that will be the best day of your development life. And I have to say that I think it was even faster than that. Like the first hour was frustrating, and the second and third and fourth hour were wonderful. So the faster you get that first hour or two under your belt and out of the way, then the quicker you're going to get into the good stuff. So with that, I hope everybody got something that they can hang their hat on and learn something that they can get excited about and goes out and builds cool and interesting and wonderful things. And thank you for your time.